What's up, everyone? We're going to talk about the dreaded pointer in Objective-C. So, pointers intimidate a lot of people, and they're very apparent in Objective-C. You see a lot of them, so it's one of the things that make people kind of shy away from the language, even though their language might have them, but they're kind of abstracted away, hidden from the programmer. It might be somewhat of a perplexing concept at first, but I assure you that at the basic level, it's not that hard to grasp. It really is not. Just try to ignore what I have so far on the screen. I'm going to go into what that is. But I just want to let you know that we're starting to transition away from the topics that are part of are really fundamental to C programming language, and we're going to get into topics that really have to do with Objective-C and object-oriented programming, which we'll get into. So some things might be confusing in the next few videos, but all of the videos should tie into OOP. Let's just start with the pointer. So you can see here I have an integer variable, myInt, and it's equal to 22. That's the value I'm setting for that integer. And I have an interesting nslog statement. I say the memory address of myInt is %p, this ampersand here. What I'm doing here is I'm asking for the memory address of this integer variable. Now, when we write this line, int myInt equals 22, we are storing this value 22 in memory. We know exactly how much space we're going to need for this variable because it's of a primitive data type integer that holds a specific amount of bytes. So we know exactly how much space in memory we're going to need. We don't have to specify that. We can just store the value in memory. It knows how much to store. Now, when we ask for the pointer and we have the and symbol, this ampersand, this is kind of a way of, it's an operator to ask for the memory address of this integer. So we're not going to print the value, but the memory address. Where is it in our computer's memory? In the next line, you're going to see something that's very foreign we haven't touched on yet. We will. This is an object. This is what's fundamental to Objective-C. This is one of the built-in objects with the Objective-C language. It's important in this foundation. You're going to be using this a lot. It's a way to create a string in Objective-C. So since it's an object, we have to make it with a pointer. We have this star. And it says, this is my string. So this is an explicit way of defining this string. What this asterisk signifies is that this variable doesn't really hold the string. It holds a pointer to a place in memory where this string is stored. One of the reasons for this is the string is dynamic. This can be very long. It could be a whole essay. It can be one line. It can be 3 characters. So this can change. The amount of memory that we need to store this changes. For this integer, we know exactly how many bytes we need for a primitive type, an integer, and that goes for all the primitive types, double, float, char, bool. We know how much space we need, but with something like a string, it's more dynamic. So we're not exactly storing this string in this variable. We're storing the place in memory where this string is stored. I'm going to go ahead and run this just to show you what I mean. Let's get this console all clear. Let's run it and see what gets logged out. So we see this hexadecimal value. This is the memory address of myInt. So you see the memory address of myInt is this. And the memory address of my string is this. So these aren't values. These are just the place in memory where these are being stored. When we create objects, which you're going to see later on, we're going to use this pointer all the time. So keep in mind, the pointer signifies that this variable is holding a reference to a place in memory. It's not holding the value itself. It's pointing somewhere, and where it's pointing is where our information is being stored. We don't have to do this with any primitive variables because we know how much space we have. We can just store it. We don't have to point and make a reference to where it is in memory. So you probably have a lot of questions after watching this. These things are going to clear up, and I'm going to explain them more during the videos to follow. But just try to understand that this pointer signifies that our variable is not holding the data itself. It's pointing to a place where our data is stored. If I tried to make the same variable, let's call it my other string, and I give it a value. It's just complaining because I'm not using the variable, but let's see what happens if I take away the pointer. we have an error. Let's see what the error says. Interface type cannot be statically allocated. So it's telling me I need to insert a pointer because this is an object. It's not a primitive data type. I need to have my pointer there because we can't just store an NS string in my other string variable. This is dynamic. We have to keep it as an object reference. So let me add that here. And now we should be left with just the warning that says we're not using it. So that's what a pointer is. Don't worry too much about this ampersand operator. It was just my way of kind of extracting the memory address out of this variable. Just as if this is being stored somewhere in memory, but the variable myInt is actually holding the value type. It's holding the value of the integer. It's not holding the reference to the integer. This doesn't hold the value to the string. It holds a reference, the value of the string. It holds a reference to the string. And we'll talk about NSString and other foundational Objective-C classes in some of the later videos.